Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the Emax Tinyhawk NanoScout. Kind of a mouthful there, but I think this is their first traditional whoop. This also comes in a ready-to-fly kit with goggles as well as their Emax E8 transmitter. We're going to cover this kind of as a quad first, and then we'll step through the kit components and what you get there. So if you have certain areas of the video you want to see, I'll put timelines or chapters down there where you can just jump to those sections that you'd like to see. The most important part that I think we need to talk about is Emax has come out with their own battery connector. I'm glad they've moved away from PH20 because we've known for a long time PH20 isn't good, but this is the new Emax EM 2.0 battery connector. Very similar to other battery connectors we've seen in case of familiarity, GNB27 and BT20, also the A30 from GNB as well. This is open source, so it's free for manufacturers to use, as per Emax is what they've told me, but it's not compatible with BT20 or A30 or GNB. Here is a side-by-side view of those the two different connectors. For the most part, we see BT20 being used. Of course, EM2 just got released, but I thought several people, would want to see how the connectors differ, at least from one aspect. The flight controller all-in-one, which is kind of a foreign one, does have a USB-C connector that we see right there. It is a 6 amp F4 process. This is just 1S on this board, and you can see it does have motor connectors on it as well. On the bottom is the VTX, which does go up to 400 milliwatts. I have no ability to test the VTX and its power output levels, so hopefully my counterparts out there can do that for us, because this is geared towards racing, and with racing you need to be steady at 25 milliwatts across the race band channel in order to be able to be compliant. Do note right down in that center hole, that is the VTX button. Emax does ship all their quads with the VTX locked, so you can't get higher power levels and you can't get all frequencies. To unlock it, press and hold that button down, plug in a battery. It only takes just a moment. These are new motors from Emax, and thus, well, the set I have here have nothing on them whatsoever. Those are 08015. Yep, it's a little bit of a curious size, 22,000 kV motors. We also have a new prop from Emax, the Avia NanoScout tri-bladed 31mm prop. The NanoScout weighs 23.15 grams on my scale. Also, the Emax EM20 batteries are 320 milliamp, and with the battery it comes in at 32.11 grams. And the NanoScout is a traditional 65mm whoop. Motor post or motor post. So I received the kit version for review, and it does come with extra props as well as extra connectors. I would doubt if you bought this on your own that you get the extra connectors. I think that is probably part of what was included in reviewer kits. Headed into the first flight within this video. This is actually not my first flight. I flew the kit first before I took off and bound to my own radio. But that is something that you can do on your own if you want to not buy this as a kit, or if you just want to buy your radio differently from a different manufacturer, what have you. I use a binding phrase, which has really simplified my life with binding to a lot of different quads. All I did to bind this to my radio that I like to use, what we oftentimes refer to as daily driver, I put my binding phrase in the configuration for the receiver within the Betaflight configuration application, and it bound right up. I didn't have to do anything else. My radio is running kind of an older version now of ExpressLRS at 3.1, I think it is. So if you're running something in the 3 version, it will be compatible. Flight audio is not included in this kit or any other form. I actually, to capture flight audio, use a secondary camera that's sitting on the table right in front of me, in front of the kitchen. My reception is the way it is because, well, one, I'm running at the moment the highest power level available on Race Band 8. Race Band 8 gets us way above Wi-Fi, and therefore we get out of that interference range, as well as we have the most milliwatts pumping out so that we can get the best or clearest picture. But I have a full video linked in the video description about my reception, and you can watch that to get all the verbal details and whatnot. So this quad is not going to do the weight race. It's not trying to get down to the bottom. Emax did that once with another quad, the NanoHawk, I think it was. And it was a little bit unique and untraditional in the fact that the whoops weren't perfectly round or the ducts weren't perfectly round around the around the propeller. They were just unique. And I don't know how that worked out for racers, but This is much more of a traditional 65mm tiny whoop, but they're not trying to get the weight as low as possible. They're trying to increase the durability of tiny whoops, and I think they've done that in two ways. One, they just have more material they've used in the ducts and the overall frame. They have more camera protection than we oftentimes see in a lot of our super light whoops, and they also have a secondary VTX. The VTX is something that I think causes a lot of troubles when it comes to all-in-one flight controllers, because VTXs do get hot. They do require airflow when you're setting things up on the bench so you don't damage them. You can't have them sitting on the race platform, which we oftentimes see have fans in them now at more races. So they're trying to develop something here that isn't going to be the lightest possible, but it is going to presumably last you through a series of races. Of course, I only got 2 of these batteries with mine, so I didn't get as many flights with this particular whoop as I do with others. Maybe 15 to 20 flights. You can see the flight has ended. We come in around almost 3 minutes. Our battery isn't quite where I would want it at 3.5 volts. I usually want it at 3.5 volts after I've disarmed and it recovered a bit. And this is our outside flight. The winds were really low. I finally got a little bit of a weather break to do this outside. And yeah, you see a little bit of that jello, and I'll show you this here a little bit later. But as far as the durability goes, I did find one issue, and that is actually the internal camera protection. I think it's very repairable because it doesn't seem like it broke that much. And quite honestly, you know, I don't like to say quite honestly, but I did not look at that particular part when I first got the quad. So that could have been broken in shipping, possibly. It's not likely because it was well packed within the case that it comes with the foam and everything around it. But I can't rule it out because when I did my inspection, that was something I did not see until my first flight outside, which this is the second flight outside. And then I saw the video jello, and then I saw where the mount, the internal mount for the camera, was broken. So that's something to keep in mind as we're watching this particular video. Like I said, this is my second outside flight with it, probably like the 10th or so flight overall, because I did most of my flying inside while I waited for a decent day to fly outside. For those that aren't familiar with whoops, when you get wind, and I traditionally have a fair bit of wind, they tend to push you off your line because these aren't big, heavy quads. They have those ducts around the propellers, which and all the other flat surfaces that make up the plastic frames that can, you know, act as a sail in wind. So ideally, your winds would be super low, or you would be well protected from the winds in order to fly this or something like it outside. I think it also shows that we have a relatively low kV motor, and that is to drive your flight time up. That's pretty much universal. You can always lower your kV on a quad in order to increase your flight time, just because it's more efficient and it doesn't allow you to fly as aggressively because you're using more and more throttle. You can see as I get here towards the end of the battery that we tend to hit 60, 65 on some of the turns. And doing punch outs, of course, we don't get the same punch on each and every punch out because our voltage on our battery comes down. And that's one of the curious things about flying 1S is as the battery voltage goes down, we just don't have as much power to do all the different maneuvers we might want to do. So we have to manage that as a pilot. That's just a 1S limitation. Of course, outside, the flight has ended. I could have flown probably about 5 seconds longer, so I would say outside flight per what I did, 2.5 minutes. Okay, so the main thing I want to cover for everyone, hopefully it's going to be seen clear, is note how that is cracked. Now, I've already pushed it back into position, so let me show you how I oftentimes found it after I noted. I don't know, can you see that to where it's just kind of broken? And it appears to be, from my inspection and getting a light and a magnifier, it appears to be only broken up here. So there's I kind of mentioned it already. This could have been broken before I ever got it. I could have broke when I crashed it initially and I didn't notice inside the jello in there. I only noticed the jello when I was outside, and that's typical of these particular issues. I could have broken it. Maybe I was changing the camera angle and I twisted that plastic piece. But that's the one area that I have to put forward as the one area that might be prone to breakages. Of course, most of us, I think, would think that's a pretty simple fix. Pushing it up in place doesn't necessarily do that. So taking out the 4 screws, taking the canopy apart, disconnecting the camera from this piece, laying this piece out, and then using some glue and to fix it. Of course, you could potentially glue the piece to the backing, which that is just a piece of tape or sticker. That's not going to really keep it in place other than to that piece of paper, but it could be effective. Who knows? It's potentially worth a try if you're not wanting to do some of the other potential fixes. Also, while we're here, also note this little wire here. That's our Express LRS antenna. Is very, very small. It does use an antenna rather than a cube that we've seen on a lot of other all-in-one. So that kind of covers the quad itself, but I'm going to fly it more and I'm going to show more flight footage within this video. But I wanted to make sure I kind of put this in 2 different sections because some will only be interested in the quad and others will be interested in the kit. So this second half of the video here, we are going to cover the kit. Kind of. I won't go into great detail on the goggles and the radio because they have been out a while. There's a lot of different information available for them, but we'll go through kind of some of the basic operations pretty quickly. First and foremost, you note that I have glasses. I am slightly nearsighted, and for those of you that might be wanting more details about that, actually, as I look at the camera, I can't see the camera clearly because I have my glasses on. I can see everything, you know, my computer screens and everything a lot more clear if I take my glasses off. Commonly, when I'm at work, because I do IT work and I'm in front of a computer, I don't have my glasses on. Matter of fact, sometimes when I get in the car to go somewhere, I will forget my glasses because I have them off so much, and I'll have to come back into the house to get the glasses. So I really need to see them, use them to see different distance, excuse me. So I have the goggles fully extended. You can see here on the side, we have 3 different levels that we can extend the goggles. When it comes to box goggles or goggles in general, the fitment is always very subject to our face. And oftentimes we talk about light leak. I don't experience with these goggles light leak that's distracting. Is there light leak? Pretty much on all goggles, I experience some sort of light leak. It could be minor or it could be very distracting, but generally speaking, I don't find it distracting once I start to fly. I find light leak when I don't have the FPV camera view in the goggles. And I'm not just talking about these goggles, all of them. Because I don't find that information, while it's desired, I don't know how useful that is. But at any rate, 3-position head strap, and that's good. For a time, we didn't have that. This is many years ago now. And with this screen up front, which does detach and is held in by magnets, we can get a lot of weight on our nose side. It has a nose cutout right here. And so that weight would tend to, you know, for some of us, would make a line across our nose or maybe pinch our nostrils shut, so where we had to mouth breathe when we had these on. And this strap does help to relieve that particular strain. As you can see here, we've got a lens inside. The screen can also be used as a bench screen for later on. Maybe you buy a different set of goggles as you adventure in deeper and deeper into FPV. It does come with these 2 linear antennas. You can, of course, upgrade those to circular polarized to help increase your reception. I do recommend that you kind of tilt one of the 2 antennas in order to pick up your signal. Potentially, do your own testing, but potentially a little bit better. You know, the antenna isn't sitting perfectly upright, and then as we angle to fly forward, the antenna will be at various points. So you may find that this helps you. If you don't, no big deal, just something I'm suggesting to try. So the buttons, we've got the B up here that changes your band, then we've got the C that changes your channel, and then we've got the R button that starts the DVR, which it does have a DVR, and then we've got our USB port right down here, and that is how you charge. On this side, I believe this button is for source, and this button is for power. You long press that. And then you can also get into the DVR to play DVR functions back. We've, of course, got our SD card right here. That is what you have to provide in order to record your flights on this particular screen. When you buy the kit, it does come in a box with a carrying handle, and it has dual zippers on it, so you can zip. I like to zip to the middle, so you always have the zippers right there. And then you have your different carrying components. Everything fits right inside the case. You do get a USB charger as well, and this charger uses green lights when they're flickering. It means they're not charging. When they're solid on, it does mean it's charging. I used a power brick, which is currently running this light back here. It's a QC3 power brick to run my charger. Took about 40 minutes to charge the 2 batteries that the kit does come with. I wouldn't be surprised if the kit has options or the kit version has options for more batteries, but I would suggest having at least 4 batteries for starting out. That way you can spend at least 20 25 minutes flying, because more flight experience, more fun. This is the Emax E8 radio, and you can see it's got stickers on here for how the quad and the modes are set up. So you don't have to learn how to set those up. It's already done for you. Matter of fact, you will find out of the box that the quad VTX as well as the goggle signal is already set for you. So you don't even have to find the proper channel. At least I did in my case. The gimbals, as far as, you know, don't mess with the trims. I guess that's the first thing. Don't mess with the trims. Even if you find if it's drifting, don't mess with the trims. That's only going to serve to probably give you fits if you're starting out. So don't mess with the trims. Do your calibration for your quad in beta flight. Make sure it's on a flat surface, not flat to a table, but flat to the earth. So you'll probably want to use a level to make sure that the angle mode and horizon mode work as well as they can. So beginner mode is angle mode, and I'll talk about that while I'm narrating the flight. And then intermediate is horizon, and then expert mode. Expert mode was essentially what, if you watch the other two flights that I showed you inside and outside, that's what I was flying. We oftentimes call that acro or rate mode. And then up top here we have their flip over crash. That is commonly referred to as turtle mode. Get the camera to focus here, hopefully. And then over here we have the beeper, which is actually not a beeper. It's just the motors making a beeping sound. So if you go down, you can turn that on, and it hopefully will help you find the quad. Of course, USB-C does your charging up here as well. And then we have a little slot which use the accessories for mounting up here. Speaking of those accessories, you have this right here, which I believe you can mount the screen to, because the screen does have a screw mount on the bottom of it right here. So if you didn't want to fly with the goggles, you could mount this within this slot, and then you could use the screen mounted on top of the radio to fly from. Some people do that. I do not. Of course, they do provide a USB-C cable, as well as an Allen and hex key, a tiny little screwdriver, a few extra screws. We also get an extra rubber band, because they do use a rubber band, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that, but, you know, that's always, you know, make your own mind up on that. But the rubber band, you don't have to even use these rubber bands. You can get a pack of loom bands from a local shopping area, or just buy them on eBay. The loom bands will work fine as well. I've used loom bands on other scenarios like this. You may need to double them up, because this is a relatively thick band, rubber band, and loom bands aren't as thick. In the kit, we also get a white USB-C cable, Express LRS, which is your receiver protocol binding companion here. Nothing on the back. Disclaimer card. Manuals and support, QR code. Check your propeller orientation before flight card. Out of the box, it comes the way you need it, so just check against the other props. And one sheet of stickers. So in this section of flight footage that we're just about to see, I'm going to narrate it live. And I don't typically do that, so this is me trying out something new. I will sound different because, of course, I don't have this audio set up that's connected to a computer and everything. It's just a cell phone, and actually the cell phone, I didn't even point it at me. I pointed it away at the quad so I could pick up the flight audio the best, because that flight audio, I think a lot of people really want to hear that so that they know whether it'll work in their environment or not. So I'll be narrating it live, so if I sound different, that's why. And then we'll come back at the end and we'll just kind of sum things up. Okay, on this first flight, I am actually going to kind of narrate it live. We're going to step through those things. For our veterans that just actually probably want to see how the quad flies in my typical mode, you'll probably want to skip using the YouTube timeline thing to the next flight. Unfortunately, outside isn't really possible today. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's very windy outside. We had rain all day yesterday, and they actually called for rain again today. But I wanted to do kind of this one intro flight for the people that might be most thinking about this as a kit, where you get the radio and the box goggles, everything all in one. So I've got everything powered up except for the quad. I'm going to turn on the quad now, and then we'll get going. Okay, so we have some noise over here to my left with the dishwasher. I am using the goggles that come with the kit, and while I wear glasses, I have the goggles fully extended, but can't quite see the image clearly. And I also see that I have my OSD a little bit misaligned. So in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see that I'm in angle mode, which has got 3 different modes. So we've got angle, and then we've got the intermediate, and then we've got the, well, it still says angle the whole 3 times. Oh, sorry. Wrong switch. So I'm currently in angle. Let me get this off screen. So then it goes to horizon, where you can do flips and rolls. And then we go into acro or rate mode. So I'm just going to start off in the beginner mode, and we'll just fly around a little bit. So obviously this is not, whoa, rough start. I typically use different goggles and a different radio for flying whoops around the house. And you can probably tell that as I move the stick, that is angle mode. It's automatically leveling out. It's not level on its own. It's level based upon the Betaflight setting or configuration of the last calibration. So if you crash, you may find that that level, or as it was last set level, isn't level at all. It's not uncommon to get drift when you're using angle or horizon mode. Horizon mode is a little bit of a weaker angle mode where it is still self-leveling, but it's not doing it as strongly, meaning it won't make the correction quite as fast. And it does make it for both roll and pitch when it comes to the stabilization. So that's kind of an introduction, if you're not already familiar with, to angle mode and the how I fly angle mode, which I'm not particularly adept at it. I have not spent a lot of time in angle mode, so longtime viewers might get a chuckle out of this. Of course, the angle that you can push it to in angle mode is limited, so you won't be able to go super fast, and you will not be able to do flips and rolls in angle mode. You can do flips and rolls in horizon mode, and you have more angle of attack or greater speed that you could potentially produce in horizon mode. But let's switch over to horizon mode. I'm disarming on the wrong side of the radio. Let's go into our next mode, which is horizon. And we'll arm here again. My house is also very friendly to RF. That's something that you might want to consider as well. If you have a brick structure or cement, like an apartment complex, how they're built industrially, the RF or the signal performance for the goggles, the image that you see, might not be as good. Well, it's very likely to not be as good in that particular case, just because our signal doesn't penetrate that surface nearly as well. My house is traditional sheetrock and wood construction. We have obviously an open floor plan, and I'll show you the reception here as we go downstairs. But I have a video about my reception, my video setup on most of my videos. Whoops, Ah, nice, we don't even have to turtle mode. But that video reception video is down in the video description. That will give you more details. Of course, I have little gates out. Gates are always fun. We got the lit up cube gate from Weebleed FPV, and you can see my battery is super low. I better get myself back upstairs, and we'll go for the next flight. Okay, what I land in? Oh, I can't tell the time. I'll put the run time that we saw briefly on screen, and you can see with our battery voltage at the bottom left, 3.5756, I think that is. It's not very clear to me in the goggles here. So we could have flown a few more seconds. We don't have to land or honor that low voltage warning really, really fast, but we do want to come in around 3.5 volts per cell. Okay, and you can now see I'm in air mode, which means that we are accountable for all the control. There's no self-stabilization in here at all anymore. Again, I'm using the Emax box goggles, fully extended, but still can't see things very, very clearly as I normally would with my typical goggles. But we're going to give air mode or no stabilization a try here with the E8 transmitter as well. Whoop, and crash right off the bat. Getting used to the gimbals here on the radio. I'll have to slow down a bit, I guess. Just making a couple of passes, getting used to it again. Flying, it's much different flying acro or rate mode than it is flying angle or horizon mode. Especially for me with most of my flying, almost 100% coming in acro or rate mode normally. It's a little bit foreign to me. But I did start out when I started flying 9 years ago using angle and horizon mode as well. I think I'm getting the gimbals and the feel for them a little bit better here, and the size of the radio. Whoa, still not completely comfortable, but you know, again, I'm not using my typical flying equipment. I usually use a Radio Master Zorro for my radio, and they have premium AG01 gimbals on those. So that's, those gimbals cost probably half or 2/3 of the cost of this entire kit, let alone the rest of the radio. But this will give you an idea about the reception as well. And my location when I fly, sitting here at the table, is critical to this reception. If I sit somewhere else, I won't get the same reception. If I sit in the basement, I can't get nearly the clarity when I go upstairs. So that's why I'm sitting at this table, is because I have found over time in my house, this is the best location for me to sit and fly from. And it's comfortable too. Oh no! Oh, I think I have to use turtle mode from what I'm seeing here. Let me see if I can flip that on. Now I need to arm. I think I'm stuck in the crotch of the couch. Let me go grab this thing. Okay, it was actually stuck underneath the pillow. So we're gonna take off. We don't have a whole lot more time for flying on this battery. And unfortunately, I only have 2 batteries to try out at a time because of the specialized Emax connector. While I believe they said that is open source, I only have 2 batteries that were included with the kit, and I have no other personal batteries with that connector. Starting to get our low voltage warning. This is where I would just kind of get a feel for how much longer I can fly, kind of my internal clock. Whoop, whoop. Oh, I didn't disarm there. I left on the throttle. I would, if you're starting out, go ahead and just disarm. That was graceful. So that flight looks to be, I think on screen, this is total arm time of 3 minutes. It's about what I expect. Let me know what you think about that kind of live sort of narration that I did on those flights to kind of talk about those different modes in this kit form. Does it fit? Does it not fit? Do I need to do something different altogether? I've tried a few different things over the years. I tend to stick to my traditional sort of format, but I'm always open to suggestions to see if I can convey the message somehow better for anyone who might be taking the time to watch. So I talked about the goggles quite a bit, and I talked about my glasses quite a bit. There are things that you can do to help alleviate any sort of vision problems you might have, because I am getting to be of that age. If you're not familiar with the channel, I'm not a young man by any stretch anymore. So when I do soldering in this hobby, I use a little kit like this. You can take the lenses, which these come with a series of lenses to adjust the magnification. You could take something like this and mount it inside the goggles. It's hard for me to show you that, but you could glue them in some fashion in the goggles. Of course, you got to kind of find your range. That might be a little tedious and difficult. Maybe you could take something like some blue tack or something to just stick these in there to find your spot and then mark it and then glue it in there. And I do bring that up because, you know, starting out with box goggles, I did too. You know, buying traditional sets of $500 and $600 slimmer goggles, it's not attainable all the time. And there are many people that fly for a long time with box goggles. So if they work for you, they work for you, and it doesn't matter. This should be about having fun. And if you do find that these don't quite work for your vision, one, you have to kind of know your vision. You know, do you know it's going to take a high dollar prescription lens in order to get you in there? In the case of prescription lenses and glasses, my glasses don't fit inside of these. Let me measure this. So I'm trying to measure the housing. I know it's out of shot here. I didn't set up the other camera for this, but from plastic to plastic on the inside is 110.5 millimeters side to side. And top to bottom, it looks to be about 50 millimeters. So that's the amount of space you have to work with inside these goggles in order to take a set of glasses, whether they're your daily glasses or something you bought from, you know, one of the big shopping places that maybe are smaller, but they work for your vision, and you can put those in there as well. So there is some flexibility within the goggles themselves and being able to extend them, but that might not, like for me, get you a really clear image. As far as the radio goes, it provides all the functionality that we would typically want in a radio. I will say that the lack of ability to adjust the spring tension is something that impacts me. I like a very loose gimbal, almost sloppy. And some people heads over at Infinity Loops, I sent him the Pocket, I think it was, after I had adjusted it and sent it over. And I think he was kind of, you know, making a highlight of the fact of how loose the sticks were. They almost jiggled when you move the radio. So that's me. And I find that these are a little bit more stiff than I would want my sticks to be, but there's no holes in the back to adjust those. I'm sure you could take it apart and adjust the gimbals, or at least I would think so. But I have not had one of these apart in order to take a look into that. So if that's something you're interested in, unfortunately, I don't have that covered, but hopefully one of my counterparts might have something for you in that regard. But the radio works fine. I don't find that the position switches are a problem. The runtime on the radio, I couldn't give you a good, you know, solid measurement of the runtime, but it seems to last for, I don't know how many flights I had on it, 8, and it's still fine. It's not even beeping or doing the little vibration thing for low battery. So I think for starting out, this would be fine. But there are a lot of radio options out there that are running Express LRS, so they would bind up to this that you could choose from, whether you want to buy it in this kit form or if you want to put together your own kit with different goggles and whatnot. So there's a lot of flexibility in this hobby, and you can do your research and find out what those things are. I don't think the quad itself is going to be a quad that, due to its weight, that when you're out and you've joined your racing league or you're out flying with your buddies, is going to be a top performer. I don't think that's what they're going for at all. I think they're trying to make something that's more reliable. One thing I didn't highlight that I should highlight, and I'll take a picture of it, is the VTX. A long time Emax has had the VTX soldered on with posts. This one is connected with wires, but the connector is smaller than we typically see. But at the very least, you can easily replace the VTX if it were to get damaged. And that's one of the areas where we get more weight than we do with other, you know, low weight tiny whoops or whoops in general, is that we usually go for like a 4-in-1 or 5-in-1 that has the VTX and everything right on it. There's no secondary board. So with that secondary board, you get more repairability, but it pushes the weight up, which in repairability, you could say that's a durability saving. So instead of replacing the all-in-one flight controller, you're just replacing the VTX, which will be substantially cheaper than replacing all-in-one boards. So there's adds to that as well as subtractions when it comes to the weight. One thing I haven't mentioned up to this point is I had troubles turtle moding this when it wasn't on a like carpet or rug or something that it would stick to. And I think that has to do with the fact that this quad has a flat top to it, and it just couldn't generate enough thrust. We've seen with some other motors or propellers that sometimes they don't generate enough thrust to turtle mode us over, because they are running in the opposite direction of how they typically generate thrust. So I had some issues. I did find that if I could get the timing rocking on those slick surfaces, like oftentimes what I would do is if I hit the turtle mode to flip us over, it would just kind of tip up on one side, the front or the back, and then it would spin around. Well, if I got the timing down to rock it, I could usually get it to flip over either one way or another. Side to side, not so much. Front to back is where I had some success, but I had to really work on that timing. So this one doesn't turtle mode as well as others that we've seen in the past. But if you're looking for a whoop, a 65mm traditional whoop that you need to run a lot and have minimal cost at repairs, or you just need something that's going to last, maybe you're part of a STEM project, that's one area that I can see that this might fit in a little bit better than the super light whoops. You might want something that's more durable. But we do have that issue of the camera, which I kind of covered, that I don't know if the camera protector at the back or the mount at the back was broken in shipping or broken when they put it together at the factory. I just don't know. I could have very well broken it when I'd been on my series of flights inside, because I did crash a fair bit, as you've kind of seen in this video. Of course, there are several crashes that haven't been in this video, but that was one thing that I wish I had done a better job of inspecting the product when I received it. And I have a little bit of regret about that. But if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise about the Emax Tinyhawk NanoScout, please let me know in the comment section below. I appreciate your time. And thanks for watching.